welcome to another edition of Lab Rats Caffeine Fueled.
Caffeine Fueled, and I hear a train in the background.
Wait a second. I'm Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
Okay, now go.
Oh, we've got trains. We've got trains over there. So if you hear noises,
Sean moved.
like that.
Sean moved to next to a rail yard, right? So when we're out here in Vancouver, you know, he's sort of astute. He sold his mansion in Toronto, and now we live in a rail yard. Well, he does anyway, and I visit.
Yeah, and we've got. Oh, you see, there goes the engine right there. That's why we can hear this big chug 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 chug.
No wonder you've got bags under your eyes. Can't sleep, no? All right, well, today on the show, besides finding out that we're back on the West Coast, we're going to look at, what, USB troubleshooting.
We're going to do just basic USB kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about, first of all, what it is, what the varieties are, and what you can do if you're having USB troubles on your system.
Very cool. All right, well, let's have a look at a message from our sponsor, a new ad, and we'll be back with USB troubleshooting and stuff.
Stuff.
This is Bongo. He likes bananas. This is a banana peel. It is a slippery hazard. This is Camtasia Studio 4. It is simple to use. Now answer our trivia question. What screen recording software does not swing from trees or make you slip? I'll be back at the end of the show with the answer.
So USB I think is probably, to me, it's a revolution in connection technology on the Windows platform. Well, actually, on all computers, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's definitely used in Mac, it's used in Linux, and many others most likely as well.
Now, USB, acronym?
Universal Serial Bus.
Right.
So now it replaced serial ports on the old systems you'd see on Windows 98. And I mean, you still do on some computers these days. You see a little dongle with 9 pins on it. That was the serial port.
And parallel ports.
And parallel ports were for printers and things like that, a little bit wider. And USB, I mean, serial and parallel are two different sorts of technologies. So I guess we should just really quickly go over what serial versus parallel is. With serial, it was basically throwing data one bit after the other.
Right.
Everything in a row. That's what serial is. Parallel would send a whole pile of information together in parallel.
Right.
So the Universal Serial Bus was designed to replace the old serial and the new parallel. Well, I guess they were roughly the same age. Or yes, no?
I don't know. Circa, I mean, we're going back a long time.
It's a long time ago.
Now, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's a whole generation of users out there that probably have had nothing but USB on their systems. So the Universal Serial Bus is oddly a lot faster than the parallel, which throws a whole pile of data at the same time, despite the fact that it's doing it one after the other. So we started with...
you know what? I always think that men are serial and women are parallel.
Quite likely.
Men, we can focus on one thing at a time, and women, you know, are parallel, right? Multitasking. They're juggling the babies, and they're, you know, cooking, and they're working, and they're doing all this stuff, and all we can do is sit on the couch and look at the TV.
Yeah, if we're cooking, that's all we're doing. We're cooking. I'm stirring the pot. I'm not answering the phone because my brain just
Honey, what are you
can't
thinking
deal with
about? Nothing, just stirring the pot. Anyway.
Yeah, some men can multitask.
Not very few. Anyway, so Universal Serial Bus is a serial technology. It's basically rapid fire. Now there was 2 generations, right? We've actually seen 2 generations so far with USB.
Yeah, there was USB 1.0. That was the very first generation that came out, but that was quickly replaced by USB 1.1.
It's basically a patch, a fix.
Pretty much, yeah. They got a bunch of things fixed up from the first bad generation. And that was 11 megabits per second. Yeah. So not terribly fast. No. There's still a lot of USB 1.1 ports kicking around on the back of machines.
Yeah, and devices. If you've ever plugged, you know, an old device into a newer, it'll say, hey, this is an old device, it's really slow. Yes,
and if you plug a newer device into an older USB 1.1 port, you'll get a message that says, this device can perform faster. Ask how. So USB 2.0 is the newer, faster specification. That's 480 megabits per second.
Yeah.
And
super fast, great for moving, you know, photos from a camera, data, you know, on USB keys, that kind of thing. Although a bit deceiving, 480 megabits is the maximum
Right.
in the lab.
Yeah,
Real world speeds, what, half that?
Yeah, so there's two types of transfer on that, and there's burst mode and sustain mode. So sustain mode is just keep it going, so minutes after that. That's typically why when you have something like digital video, like when we capture lab rats on our DV cams and then capture it, it's via FireWire, because USB 2.0, despite being faster, it's 480 megabits per second as opposed to FireWire's 400 for that first generation of that. FireWire can keep delivering that, whereas USB after a while sort of poops out.
Right.
And sort of backs up. It's just the nature of it being a serial technology.
Right.
So,
what to next? I suppose, so here's the thing, the kinds of devices you're going to encounter USB on, I mean, there's a gamut of them, right? And pretty much every single, so if you buy a printer today, if you buy a scanner, if you buy a USB storage device of some sort, either a flash memory or hard drive, you're going to use a USB connector.
And let's have a camera, everything. Everything, right.
Let's have a quick look at, I don't know if we can see, or maybe we'll insert a picture here of what a USB port looks like. So as you can see, it's sort of like a chewing gum, Wrigley's chewing gum sized connector. You can plug, a device in there. The plug can only go one way.
Unless you push really hard and break things.
Right. But easy, right? Plug in, plug out, and that sort of thing. But to make it work, you also need drivers, right? You
need drivers, and for the most part, a lot of those drivers these days are built right into the operating system. So if you have Windows XP, with Windows 98, since that was the first operating system where USB came into existence, the earlier versions of Windows 98 didn't have a lot of the drivers you needed. So something called USB mass storage class, which handles all of your flash drives, all of your hard drives, that's now built into things like Windows XP, Vista, into Mac OS X. So if you plug in one of these things, in general, you don't even need to think about it. It's just, all of a sudden, it's an external drive that's on your system. Older ones you needed drivers for, so Windows 98 and maybe Windows 98 Second Edition, depending on what type of device it was, might require a specific drive.
What about over on the Mac side of things?
Over on the Mac side of things, again, you just plug it and you go. And that's the same with external hard drives and with the flash drives, unless you had a very particular kind of enclosure for a hard drive that you're putting on there. Some of the earlier ones, they didn't conform to mass storage class, but if you get something new these days that's
from SanDisk or
from SanDisk,
any of the large Lexar, people like that,
right? And any of those, or the new hard drives from Seagate or whatnot, those should be standard mass storage class. So you just plug it in and it should be good to go. You just install the drivers from the Windows cache on the hard drive and you're good to go.
What about Linux? Do you know?
Linux is a little bit iffy in some, but the newer versions of Linux, and again, it'll depend on the version of Linux that you have. So there are so many different types of Linux, so many different versions of each of those operating systems. Like Ubuntu has like 6 trillion different types of Ubuntu. Most modern ones will have USB mass storage class already pre-built in, so you shouldn't have to think about it. If you're running an older version of Linux, you may have to update your core to accept those.
Right.
But I found with my work with Linux, you just plug it in, and there it is.
It works.
It works.
Fabulous. All right. Anything else to add? Because I think we should do a demo on troubleshooting your USB connector and the drivers and that sort of thing.
Oh, why don't we get right into that?
Let's do it. All right.
All right. So we're going to show you at the very least one thing that can be a problem sometimes, and the one thing that I hate more than anything with USB is when you plug something in and it goes dum 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 and just doesn't work, could not recognize it.
Right.
So sometimes it's an issue. Oh, this is one thing that we should add before we get into this. USB carries power over the pins. So you've got inside every USB device here, you've got 4 pins, and we'll take a close-up photograph of this as well. But you've got 4 pins, 2 of them are power and 2 of them are data. Okay. All right, so when you have a device that you plug in and it doesn't recognize, it could be a power issue as well. Okay. So first of all, if something's not working and it does have the option for power, it's possible that your system is not delivering enough power through the USB bus. Right. So either
especially with more higher powered devices like hard drives that are
Right.
really demanding on the USB bus for
Right.
power and that sort of thing.
in general, something like a flash drive shouldn't require an awful lot of power. Something like a mouse shouldn't require an awful lot of power.
Right.
Although, if you're pushing your system to the edge already and you plug in one of the new optical mice that flashes a laser down at the desktop, you may run into the issue. So if you're plugging that in, it's not working.
So what's the
Give it
solution?
more power. The solution is upgrade your power supply potentially if you're really running on the edge. So
On your desktop machine.
on your desktop
Right.
machine, and that's one of the issues with notebooks. If you're doing this on a notebook, there may not be a lot you can do. So if you have a bus-powered hard drive that gets its power directly from the USB, and we'll show off one of those at the end of the show, then you may not be able to run one of those. If you have the possibility to plug in an adapter for that, that might be what you have to do for that.
And you can also get a powered USB hub, correct?
A powered
That's
USB
one way
hub
around it.
will help.
Right. So that's basically a connector that allows you to connect multiple USB devices into one. It looks like sort of like a router. And you plug that cable into your USB port on the machine,
Right.
and that's powered as well. So you actually have a power to the wall.
Right, and that certainly has helped me in the past as well before. So if you plug it into the power, then it takes the load off of your computer, and your computer doesn't have to deliver all the power to these devices. So there we go. Thank you very much for that catch.
You're welcome.
All right, so
let's get into troubleshooting then.
let's take a look at this.
What are you gonna show us?
Troubleshooting. So to get to it, you would just go to your control panel, open it up, and we've already opened this up. Go to System.
The system, yeah.
I would just suggest go to Classic View because it gives you a lot more
Detailed
options
yeah.
here. So then you go over to System, go to your Hardware tab, and then hit Device Manager.
Now, for those of you that are running Windows Vista, of course, all you're going to do is type in Device Manager into the search bar on the Start menu.
Right. So now, in the Device Manager, the USB lives right near the bottom. It actually has its own little section here called Universal Serial Bus Controllers. And what that does is it controls the root hub. Now, each computer that runs USB on there has something called a hub. You already talked about a powered hub, which you can do externally, because all USB controllers can handle something like up to 127 different devices, and it won't be able to provide power, and it probably won't be able to provide the bandwidth for that many, but in theory,
yeah.
it can set up 127 different address locations for these devices.
Wow, cool.
So because of that, each of these computers has to have a hub built into it to be able to send it to the different USB ports on the machine.
Right.
So you'll notice that when we open up the system here, the Universal Serial Bus Controller section, we have Universal Host Controller. That will be the actual device on the motherboard. And it'll also have the root hub. If you are having a problem with this, because it comes inside the cache of drivers that comes with Windows, one thing that can often solve a lot of your problems is just going in here and deleting all of these. So you can just click on a USB root hub, click Uninstall. You're about to uninstall this device from your system. So we're going to get rid of your USB root hub there. But don't worry, as soon as you restart the machine, it'll find it again.
You're not going to get a message that says error USB hub not found.
You shouldn't. We'll find out very shortly. So we're going to uninstall this.
No, luckily, no, that's right. You don't. Windows is smart enough to go.
Yeah. So, and if you do have that problem with your, if it doesn't automatically reinstall it, generally you can download the USB drivers from the manufacturer of either the motherboard. So before you do this, maybe find out what your motherboard is if you have a desktop, or if you have a notebook. Find out what the manufacturer and model number is for sure, if it's not obvious.
Now, wouldn't those drivers also be integrated into the chipset update?
They would be integrated into the chipset. So
Yeah.
you're either going to be looking for the USB specific drivers, USB 2.0. If it's an older machine, it might have USB 2.0 specific drivers that you have to install.
But if not,
look for the chipset or the INF, and the USB is generally rolled up into that. So reinstall the newest version of that, and it'll fix up some other problems potentially inside your system that are related to motherboard issues, like the audio, whatever that's integrated in there.
So if you have a machine that you bought from a brand manufacturer like Dell or HP or somebody like that, on the website you're going to see chipset update and that sort of thing. It's usually an executable. You download it, you install it, and it takes care of things. If you're a self-build and you use an Asus motherboard, or you have to go to asus.com or somebody like that and download the chipset package from the motherboard maker. All right.
Yeah, and so I said if you're having problems with your USB, reinstall the drivers from the ones that you found from the motherboard. I would say first just try uninstalling them from your control panel here. You can uninstall the host controllers, you can uninstall the root hubs. Just uninstall them, then reboot the machine and fire it up. If you've got anything that you're connected to that's essential, that is running off of USB, like an external hard drive or whatever, don't just fire it down like that. Make sure everything is safely powered down.
Yeah. Reboot, right, when it comes up
reboot,
again.
And when you reboot, it'll find all of this hardware that you've uninstalled on the previous session that you've had on Windows. And it'll...
You don't need a Windows XP install disk or your Vista install disk at this
You
point?
shouldn't need it.
Yeah.
No, it should automatically just find all of those things, just saying, oh, new hardware, hey, that's a USB root hub.
Right, because what you're doing here is you're taking this out of the registry, actually.
Right.
So you're not actually removing the drivers per se, just the references in the registry. It's the system's going to automatically find that it has found a piece of hardware without a reference, and it's going to reinstall it.
Exactly.
From the driver cache from Windows.
Right.
Windows keeps it around.
Yeah, and there's like a section in your inside your Windows directory that has all of this sitting there in, I think, cabinet files somewhere, and it'll pull it out. And if worse comes to worse, you might have to replace the cabinet files on there, but this is starting to get into more hardcore troubleshooting mode. So
the good news is that actually in most cases, and I don't think I've ever had a problem where I've done this before, I haven't had to reinstall cab files, it's just Windows. You know, it's one of the graceful things that Windows does do, and it's a great way to troubleshoot a USB problem. Good, all right.
And I guess the other thing is, if you've got a USB drive that you've plugged in, or a USB device, let's say we're talking the anything that's a mass storage class like the flash drive or an external hard drive, that shouldn't be a huge issue. But if you have a more specialty item, for example, like a scanner, or if you have a specialty item like a fingerprint reader, something like that, what you may want to do is look on the website of that particular device for the specific driver. And it doesn't hurt to clear out these root hubs and the controllers as well. It'll find them all, clear out any problems that may be causing interference between the devices. And the other thing I would suggest is if you have an older machine as well that has both USB 1.1 drivers ports and USB 2.0 ports, is make sure that you're putting the right devices on the right thing. So if you're getting really lousy performance from a hard drive, it's possible that you're plugging into a USB 1.1 port.
Right.
And you might want to plug it into a USB 2.0 port instead. So just check with the motherboard manufacturer driver, or the motherboard manufacturer, or the notebook manufacturer to make sure that you aren't plugging it into the wrong one. Right. And you can, in fact, if you have an old desktop tower that's running all USB 1.1, install a USB 2.0 card as well.
Speed things up.
They'll fix up all those problems.
So there's a lot of esoteric problems you're mentioning there, and I think most people won't encounter that, especially if you have new hardware and that sort of thing.
Right.
Good. Well, let's take another look at a message from our sponsor, and then we'll be back with some pictures.
Pictures on USB.
Woohoo.
Earlier in the show, we asked you what screen recording software does not swing from trees or make you slip. Is it A, Bongo the Chimp, B, a banana peel, or C, Camtasia Studio 4? The answer is Camtasia Studio 4. Learn more at labrats.techsmith.com.
That's a tasty cup of coffee.
Thank you. I brewed it myself.
No, you didn't. I brought it from Starbucks.
Okay, so it's in a box, but I thought about making it.
Anyway, that was a heck of a fun USB segment.
A lot more fun than it should have been.
Can you imagine? Wow. All right, well now you know though, and now you know what you need to know about USB, and when your grandma says, honey, what's USB?
Actually,
you can tell.
What's this USB?
USB. There you go. Now you can tell.
There you go.
Aren't you a good grandson and a granddaughter? All right, we have pictures.
We have a few pictures.
All right, let's see them.
Is that better not be that full?
No, it's not.
Careful. Technology here. Technology and coffee does not mix.
Here comes the cat. Oh.
Yes.
Ooh. Hello.
Oh, she didn't like that.
I miss the biffer and the booer.
Yeah, so
Look
again.
at you.
Hello.
You're so cute.
You'd rather be sleeping, wouldn't you?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, so some pictures.
So we have pictures. So we have first Anthony
Anthony
from Manchester, England. Here's one of your peeps.
Yay!
And yeah, I guess Tech Geeks. I think ye. Tech Geeks. Oh, I think she wants down.
All right, down.
She's not as obedient as Biff.
Biff, oh,
and
yeah.
Biff is not obedient at all.
No, he's not. But he tolerates me.
He tolerates it. She's got a mind of her own.
Right.
So Anthony.
Anthony, thank you, Anthony, for sending in your picture. You're a bit pixelated here, but at least we can see your face.
Yes, indeed.
Unlike the rest of the tech geeks who are like, hi, here's a picture of me.
Or here's a picture of something I saw once.
Hey, it's the lab rat!
I want to talk about this because this is really, really fun.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Betsy, one of our favorite people from TechSmith, we gave, I guess Craig,
Craig,
your operations manager, gave, or made a bunch of these, Craig's partner.
Yeah,
Kim made a bunch of these little lab rats out of IKEA rattises.
Rattises, yeah, and Minnie, she works at Fabricville, so which is like a chain of fabric stores, right? So she made these little lab coats and re-sewed them all. So you made 3 of them.
Yeah, so we've got one each, and now Betsy has the 3rd rat, and this rat is traveling the world. And she's doing this thing on her Flickr stream. Yeah. We'll put a note to that in the show notes, a link to that in the show notes. And right now, this was back in Toronto, you can tell, because there's a nice glass of steam whistle here. Oh. And so Lab Rat here is having a little bit of steam whistle, and there's a little action sequence here. So, and a little bit too much steam.
Kind of looks like you after you've had a couple of steam whistles.
I never get that horizontal after steam whistle, but
it's all giggly like a little girl. Anyway, so check that out because Betsy's taking a picture a day and she's posting it on her Flickr stream. And I think recently she was in Amsterdam, so you can check out Lab Rat in Amsterdam, and because she travels, she's a tech evangelist, or the technology evangelist for TechSmith Corporation. So
yeah, we've actually got that poor little lab rat being used as a soccer ball, being headed.
It's great. Check it out. We love it. Well, that's it for us, I guess. Don't forget to check out the Little Geeks Foundation's website at littlegeeks.org. It's a charity I created in Toronto to give computers to underprivileged children.
And I understand it may be spreading.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be having, well, I'm looking to expand it into other cities, and we have somebody in the Niagara region who's taken it on, so I'll tell you more about that when that starts to happen. And every time I come to Vancouver too, I keep looking for people to take it on, so maybe that'll happen in the future too.
Yeah, and if you're watching out there and you're interested in starting a chapter, talk to him.
Send me an email, andy@cyberwalker.com or andy@labrats.tv, or any of the other email. Oh, birds in the window.
We got birds, we got planes, trains, automobiles, birds,
oh my God,
whales, seals.
Oh my God. Anyway, that's it for us from Lab Rats West. My name is Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
We'll see you next time.
Are you ready?
Nice.
What you're hearing now is the sound of the train in the wild. It's heading to the prairies. It's on its migration from the west coast into the center of the country.
That's not Toronto, though.
Not Toronto.
Well, maybe bred in Toronto. Okay, shall we?
See all of those things right there?
Yes.
Costco. Those are going to the Costco outlets.
Oh, nice.
They misspelled it for some
So
reason.
like widescreen TVs and marshmallows.
Yeah.
100-weight marshmallow.
Those are big marshmallows.
Yeah.